Morning, hon. It is 10:15. I'm supposed to be in the theater at 10:30 for my shore excursion, and we are still moving. We have not docked here, and I think we've still got to go under this bridge yet before we're in port. I'm not sure though. But we are in mostly Osaka. Whether we're ready or not, I should get going. I'm gonna wear this shirt one last time because it's going to be pointless for the rest of the trip. Because this is our last stop in Japan. Might as well enjoy it while I can. Anyway, that's enough prologue, and I guess it's time to get going. Okay, so we're not going to be going under that bridge over here, but we aren't quite in port yet either, so it's going to take a little while. And I see we've got a couple of mascots here too. Well, we're at Osaka Castle, honey, and this is one of the few remaining original buildings. The watchtower here is from about 1620. Most of the rest has been rebuilt as of the 1930s after a lightning strike and fire and so many other things. These are wooden buildings, or were. The new ones from the 20th century are made in concrete. And for that matter, you'll notice I said this was built in 1620 or thereabouts. That doesn't make it technically original, because the original was built by the Toyotomi clan in the late 1500s, 1597 when it was completed. However, after the siege of Osaka, where the Tokugawa shoguns basically destroyed the place, they decided to rebuild the fortress for their own use. And it is that fortress that stands today, right here. Or at least this particular watchtower remains. Most of the rest of it, again, is a reconstruction, like so many of the castles in Japan. Again, this is what happens when we're dealing with wooden buildings. They can only last for so long. Rot, as well as fire, take their toll. Our guide makes much of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who oversaw construction of this original fortress and the grounds around it. But he only managed to live to see it built for about a year. He was in charge of the construction for 15 years when he died, and command of the clan was given to his son. It only lasted 15 years before the Tokugawa clan laid siege to the place in 2 separate years and overthrew the Toyotomis and finished the job of unifying Japan. And while Toyotomi is listed as is considered one of the great unifiers of Japan, the fact is the third great unifier not only completed the job, but had to overthrow him in the process. I was just saying to our guide how I worry about when I'm regurgitating some of the points that are made to me, that I will get things wrong and certainly mispronounce names. Oda Nobunaga in particular is a bit of a stumbling block. But the fact is that I've got to repeat the talking points as quickly as I get them, if for no other reason than if I don't, I'm going to forget everything I've been told. And it's like, well, what was the point of going on this trip if you can't remember anything about it? And so here we are. One more reminder that we're wandering in a replica rather than the real thing, but at least the steps are even. In a day and age before modern conveniences such as escalators, elevators, and indoor plumbing, obviously Osaka Castle was the tallest building in Osaka for a very long time. This also meant that it was something of a magnet for weather. And the main building that I'm standing in right now was struck by lightning and burned down in the 1600s, and lay in a pretty much ruined state until 1931, when the city, or rather its inhabitants, pooled funds together to get this place rebuilt very much in the original style. And that's the one we're standing in right now, complete with elevators if you're willing to stand in line, and even stairs. So, to say nothing of an impressive view, if you can see it, of downtown Osaka. And here we have it. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the second great unifier of Japan, after Oda Nobunaga, and of course before the man who defeated him, Tokugawa Ieyasu. Nobunaga and Toyotomi both failed in their chances to unify Japan. The Sengoku, or Warring States period, didn't end until the shogunate began. So, why does Osaka, in particular, revere this man? Even this castle, he barely occupied for a year, and his son, Hideyori, only managed to hold it for 2 decades after that, before being crushed and overthrown for the Tokugawa's shogunate. Well, here in Osaka, they value meritocracy, and Hideyoshi Toyotomi exemplified that. He was born to a farming family. He was not from the ranks of the bakufu or of a noble family. He worked his way up. He was a disciple of Nobunaga and learned basically at his knee the way of the samurai, and proved his mettle in battle enough times to become basically his heir apparent. His ability to strategize and, of course, to build defenses raised him to the point where he was in charge of the main portion of Japan here in Osaka. But, of course, unity seems to only work once everybody who opposes you is dead. And since Tokugawa opposed him, it was basically down to a battle before one faction had to win and the other had to be eliminated. It sounds cruel to modern ears, and it is. And yet, that was the way of the world for not just centuries, but millennia, and on into the times before even recorded history. 2 factions enter, 1 faction leaves. That's just the way it is. For a commoner such as Toyotomi to make such a mark on Japan is something that especially the merchant class that Osakans tend to be would more than appreciate. You can make something of yourself no matter who you were born as long as you work hard, study hard, and are focused on a goal, you can accomplish anything. It matters not whether you were born a noble. Hard work and accomplishment are all that truly matter. Given his history, one might think that the Western mind, and especially that of the American, who believes in pulling oneself up by one's bootstraps, would be able to understand the appeal of Toyotomi and his humble beginnings and what he made of himself. Unfortunately, of course, Americans generally tend to favor winners over losers, so we probably have a hard time being able to accept reverence towards a man who failed. I keep saying that term, and that's basically it. The idea was to unify Japan, and he did not manage to do so. That he got as far as he did sort of gets lost in the shuffle, if an American were to pay attention to it at all. And yet, his story seems to be a Japanese take on the American dream. A man who, at least in life, if not in legacy, did manage to unify Japan and defend himself and his clan against it. The fact that it didn't survive for more than a couple of decades after himself is through no fault of his own. The worst you can say of him is that perhaps he didn't train his son Hideyori sufficiently to take over the family business, if you want to call it that, well enough. Then again, it's entirely possible no one could have prepared oneself sufficiently for a force of nature like Tokugawa Ieyasu.